Welcome back, everyone, to another special episode, this time of the FX Insights podcast. We're coming to you the day after the RBA and Digital Finance CRC. So if you don't know the RBA, that's the Reserve Bank of Australia, our central bank. They just announced the participants in Project Acacia. We're going to go through that. As you can see here, what I've got on screen is the media announcement that's just come out, and 10th of July. So the RBA, DFCRC, Australian Treasury, ASIC are mentioned in here. There's 19 pilot use cases. There's there's also 5 proof of concept use cases as well. They talk about ASIC clearing the way for industry participation and Project Acacia's next steps. So here are the lead use cases, and thankfully, not centralized right there is one of those. We'll go through more of that, but you can see the others here: Australian Bond Exchange, ANZ, Australian Payments Plus, Canvas, Catena Digital CBA, Fireblocks, Forte Tech Solutions, Imperium Markets. We saw them last time, as well as with the banks. Northern Trust, a trustee, Prospects Group, Westpac Banking Corporation, and Zero Cap. So welcoming all of those different use cases, and we will go through that in the rest of the news. So next up, I just wanted to highlight the different news articles, and there are plenty. You'll see all of that that we've gathered anyway in the next edition of Chain Reaction, the Australian DeFi Association's newsletter that comes out on Monday. But for this first one, here is the media release that we at Not Centralized put out. We were selected as a lead participant in Project Acacia. You can see more details here. We just go through what it was in that initial media release. So there's not too much detail in there, but something that we are doing, and I'll just show here at the end later on. I'll get to that. But basically, you'll be able to see the different use cases that have announced, and we've summarized that. We'll put that on the AusDeFi website. I'll show you that very soon. But for now, let's get to the next one. This next one is an announcement from Red Belly, our friends over there, and they are selected as one of the blockchains, the networks that are being used on this. There's also R3, Corda, Hedera, and others. But Red Belly is interesting because they are a public blockchain, and it's the first time that a central bank anywhere globally is doing it on a public blockchain. So what you can see here is their announcement. They are partnering with us, one of the pilot use cases, but as a selected network, it does mean that others can also be on the network. So really good stuff. Red Belly is built for compliant asset tokenization, compliant ways of actually doing blockchain. And if you think about the mainstream and moving towards that, we can't have this Wild West where no one knows each other. Red Belly's KYC, they have AML CTF compliance. These things are built in to how they work. There is also like the confidentiality that you get. So it's not just blockchains that you use and anyone can see what you're doing. This is actually taking into account the best of both worlds, and really interesting to see what will come out of that. But for now, you can see the announcement here. You can definitely follow along. Arturo and Alan have been in the news. We just saw this morning Ausbiz. They were on that one, and we'll be able to show you that one when the replay comes out. But definitely follow Red Belly Insights podcast as well, where yours truly is the host of that one. And Alan and Arturo there talking about it. So Alan, the CEO of Red Belly, and Arturo, my colleague, CEO of Not Centralized, definitely worth checking out here. Next up is one of the other use cases. This is from which bank? CBA, and they are doing their project with JP Morgan, the ASX, HQLAX, and they've been selected to bring basically improvements to the $350 repo market, repurchasing agreement for those in the know. So they were chosen along with their counterparties. This is basically also including the trusted third party, the Deutsche Börse Group. So if you know anything about exchanges, this is a major exchange over in Europe, and all of them are coming together, and they're going to leverage Connexus Digital Assets, JP Morgan's multi-asset tokenization platform, and CBA's digital assets platform to come together around a collateral mobility solution and bringing that to the local expertise of the ASX. Where we are filming, this is the former CNBC head offices. They used to film from here, which is why we've got this great space, great TVs here, now taken over by FX FX Global, and this commodities group, this exchange, sits right across the road from the ASX. If I look out that way, literally a stone's throw, 20 meters away or less, the ASX is right there. So really interesting stuff. This coming together of old world and new world is a fascinating sort of thing, and we're very lucky to be part of it. And thanks to CBA for sharing this. Definitely check out this article here. Next up, we're highlighting the AFR, the Australian Financial Review, one of the prominent papers in the financial space here in Australia. Paul Smith, the technology editor here, talks about the CBA and JP Morgan led project. Also highlights the comments from the RBA Governor Brad Jones and the series of experiments that the DFCRC are going to run. You can see more about that in this AFR article here. And there'll definitely be more coverage from the mainstream news as well as Web3 news as more information goes out. Next up, it's this Yahoo Finance and Cision Newswire kind of article. This is from Fireblock. So the great folks over there, they are a massive company. You would have seen us talking to them in previous episodes. We had Shane Werner on the show. He's the country head for Fireblocks. They are a huge organization in the infrastructure space, as you would have learned from that or watching Red Belly Insights, where we had Nick Crofts on there. They cover, in terms of transaction size, a large portion of the market. I think it was like up to 30% or something like that is covered by them. Or it might be, some number around that. We'll have to go back to previous shows to have a look, but they are a significant part of the market. They are joining Project Acacia, and in fact, in our use case, there is going to be interaction there. So they are a lead participant, but there is going to be some stuff that they're doing that interacts with the not centralized and Red Belly use case. So definitely worth checking out. You can see here what they talk about in terms of this focus approach on the conceptual research part. They talk about other participants. So the Australian Bond Exchange is part of that. Fastenara Capital as well. When we have the deep dive with my guest, and this time it's Arturo, we're actually going to go through the details there. So check that one out and check out this article. Next up, it's over to the Web3 news, and we see Cointelegraph amongst others that are covering this. You can see this article here. They talk about the trial and how this is phase 2 of Project Acacia. And they showcase Red Belly's tweet here that highlighted it, along with ourselves, Australian Bond Exchange, Fireblocks, Paid, ANZ, and others. And you can see here how they talk about the major banks being on board for this. And just like last time, we'll go through that next. The CBDC pilot, 3 of the 4 major banks were part of this one. The green light from the regulators, the current state of crypto in Australia, and more. So you can read more about that, but definitely there's going to be more Web3 news covering this. We're really looking forward to that. Next up, we wanted to show you another part, which is basically the aggregation of the different use cases. It's only been less than 24 hours that this is out at the time of recording. And basically, the different use cases, they've been announced in terms of who the lead participants are, but the details of which they haven't all been aggregated yet like they've done in previous years. What we've done on this homepage here on the Australian DeFi Association is, as you can see from the menu, we've got this new section for RBA Project Acacia. You can see some more details about it here, but then we've also listed the project participants. So you can see here that not centralized is one of the use cases, the use case overview, the participants, summary and objectives, where the information is available. Canvas is also listed here, as you can see. So wherever we've gathered the information, here's Katina Digital, here's Westpac, etc. Wherever there is enough information, we are listing it here. But there will be an official listing later on. You can also aggregate all of this. So you can look at just the financial institutions, the technology providers, the regulators and research organizations here, and all of the things that they are doing as part of Project Acacia. We are gathering that on the AusDeFi website, but eventually it will turn into something like this. Digital Finance CRC have this place for the CBDC report from last time, where they actually aggregate all of the different use cases. What you can see here is the select pilot use cases from 2023. We were one of those where we did construction supply chain payments. Commonwealth Bank did biodiversity. ANZ had a CBDC distribution thing. Commonwealth Bank also had GST automation. Then there was ANZ with 3 more use cases. Novarti was there as well. Unison, Canvas, who are also one of the participants this time, as well as Imperium Markets. Who else did I have? I had MasterCard. Australian Bond Exchange had a separate use case. Maneuver as well, and DigiCash. So those are the ones from 2023. We've got the new pilot participants for this year. We're covering as much as we can in terms of who the participants are on the Oz DeFi website. And there's going to be more announcements as the RBA, DFCRC, and others get to showcase more of what they're doing. But this is a big news announcement. There's a whole lot of innovation that's going on. This is regulators, this is the government, this is technology providers, financial institutions, and even more so the community coming together to build in this open and transparent way. There's going to be more news, and we're really looking forward to diving deep into it with my next guest, my colleague, Arturo. Welcome back, folks, to the deep dive for this episode, and we've got a special guest here, Arturo.
Thank you for having me.
Maybe it does lose its meaning after saying special guest each and every time, but it really is special because in the first part of this segment, we went through the news, which was Project Acacia. So first of all, congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a thing.
It has definitely been a thing, and there's been some interesting insights that have been happening across the board that we've seen, from the different participants and their use cases that are coming out. We've seen, 19 pilots and POCs. There's 5 selected networks or something like that. I had it in the news here before, so I should know, but really interesting stuff from all the different use case participants. And we've seen some insights into who's actually doing stuff in the space. Okay, I'll just pause. I'll
see. Let's see. I think it's 19, 5 pilots, and then 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep.
5.
Okay. I'll just edit that again. You good? Yeah. Yeah. You're right. So really interesting stuff because we've got the different, there's 24 use cases, 19 pilots, 5 proof of concepts, and then the different selected networks for this Red Belly one that we spoke about, but also as you can see here, Hedera, R3/4, Canvas Connect, and others. But yeah, first of all, before we dive into it, how does it feel?
Well, that's when it starts.
Yeah. So that's where the fun begins.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a long lead to get to this point. It's like you have to run a marathon to actually start the race.
Yep.
And here we are.
Yeah. It's like, okay, they're just going to tie you out. It's like that scene where Russell Crowe in Gladiator is, beaten up and stabbed before he actually has to do the fight, and now he gets to fight. I'm not saying that we went.
We're not saying the RBA is this, or we're not saying that it's.
It's just a lot of work that goes into it beforehand, just like last time, because we're lucky enough to be second-time participants.
Yes.
Little do folks know that this is actually the 3rd test that the RBA has done. There was a much more closed pilot in 2021, Project Atom, and then they did the CBDC project, which we were part of, and then now this one, Acacia. How does it? What can you remember from the what we went through the first time, not knowing anything? How much did that change versus now, just going through the process?
I think that when pain is really big, then you tend to forget.
You start to be at one with your tormentor. Yeah.
I think that the ability to joke about it just shows how open and collaborative the RBA has actually been throughout all of these different exercises. And it's not really only the RBA; it's also been ASIC and APRA and all of these institutions, right? So if we go back to the question, the first pilot was about understanding how the RBA effectively would create a digital, they already have digital dollars, a dollar on a blockchain.
Yes.
That was a private blockchain. They were running all of that in-house, and we then had to bridge over that token from the private chain to external blockchains because the private chain was not programmable and couldn't do things and so forth, right? So that exercise was in principle, getting comfortable with understanding how a blockchain is set up and how it works, and then also getting comfortable with the legal repercussions of effectively expanding M0.
That was a big thing.
That was a really big thing.
The legal repercussions, because this is not just a pilot project where it's like, okay, cool, do it. This is the CBDC pilot, and then we're not going to worry about legal consequences. We actually dived into that. We partnered with lawyers to actually get into that, like high-level lawyers too, folks that gave up their time to help us out, which is really amazing.
Herbert Smith Freehills were amazing, guided us through the entire process, and it was actually quite humbling, right, when you see that even the RBA at that time received exemptions from regulators to be able to participate. So it was a really big thing. This pilot now is less so about a CBDC, although that's where people are focusing outside of the RBA.
Yep.
They keep on calling it a CBDC pilot. It's not. It's a tokenization pilot. It's an exercise for the RBA to understand how to support tokenized markets, whatever that means. And I think that it needs to be clear that whatever it means is important, because those tokenized markets don't exist yet.
Exactly. Well,
so we're figuring it out, right?
And that's a really interesting comment that you've got there, because we see a lot of, the two biggest topics, I think, in the crypto space at the moment are stable coins on the one side and real world asset RWA tokenization on the other. And a lot of that tokenization, as we've spoken about before, has just been stuff where it's only on chain and potentially has issues because the legality of it, or it's not actually brought into existing business workflows, which we'll talk about next. But this is something where it's a central bank of an entire nation, a country with the fourth biggest pool of pension funds in the world, with so much assets for the little size that we have in terms of population, actually looking at how tokenization and how they can support it. I feel like that is a point that should not be lost on viewers.
No, it's, I think that this will inform how future markets look, and the way in which we execute this pilot as a community, a collaborative group of individuals will set the tone for many things to come in the next few years.
I agree. Just pause. All good? You tried.
Just keep going.
You sure?
You will cancel it out.
Oh, okay. But it's disturbing us.
Sorry.
I'm joking with her. She's cute. I like it. Where are we? No, okay, yeah. So there's that. Let's get into the next part around, like, let's get into our specific use case. And if you just give a high level first, and then we'll go, okay, but before we go into that, let's go into the background of like why we're doing this. All right.
Yeah. Let me just bring this thing up quickly so that I remember.
Yep. You're good. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so for this next part, we're going to get actually into our specific use case. And as I showed in the news segment before, we've seen some announcements of other use cases there. At a high level, just for the audience, can you give us a background on what it is that you're trying to do?
It's a pretty ambitious project, because we're actually trying to represent the full end-to-end life cycle of a securitization deal.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why we chose securitization is because it's everything in finance is a value chain, but securitization is a well understood yet complex value chain, where you have everything from the issuance of bonds or investments that are backed by pools of assets. So you have pooling of collateral. And then you also have the origination of the thing that you're pooling, i.e. the receivable or the payable that you're financing. So we're starting off with a payments company generating invoices. Those invoices are payables. They get
paid.
Yeah, correct. Those invoices then get moved into an asset pool.
Okay.
So they get factored into the asset pool.
Nice.
All of this happens on chain. And that asset pool then works as collateral to back an investment bond that is then sold to wholesale investors in order to raise capital from capital markets, and then push that all the way down to actual utility, or to fund real world invoices. Yeah. Now that's the beginning, right? And then we have the life cycle of that, which is that as these invoices get paid, then that generates interest payments that flow back to the investors. Okay. Right. So it is the full life cycle of the product. And I think that there are two main differences in this pilot towards how other projects have run things. And it's that usually people just focus on the starting point, which is how do we represent the register of the asset that we're tokenizing.
Yep.
But that's, I wouldn't even say that it's half of the work. No.
Not even half the work.
Right. It's, you have to represent the asset, but then you also have to manage the life cycle of that asset, and you have to effectively tokenize the payments.
I think that Alan said it best when you were on our Red Belly Insights, that this is an ambitious and complex kind of use case. What was the motivation there to actually make it as complex as this? And we'll dive more into it. But yeah, what was, just first of all, the thinking behind it? Are you crazy?
Always. But look, I think that's the purpose of this exercise is to understand what a market looks like. And unfortunately, a market is many things, and the least that a market is a value chain.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're not modeling the full value chain, then you're not understanding how these different participants effectively play with each other. And that is the entire purpose, right, of blockchain or of this exercise. So I think that I would almost explain insanity to myself as saying that you have to be this complex if you actually want to achieve the purpose of the pilot, because otherwise you're not showing the full thing, right?
Yeah. And if you just do that one small part, I think the hardest thing is that that might work in isolation, in a vacuum, but unless you're actually testing the full thing, and we see it like whether you're testing stuff, and a lot of people are building more in the AI space, and quickly being smacked in the face or punched in the face, as Mike Tyson would like to put it, when you haven't fully tested just how this will work in terms of like an entire kind of system. And going back to your earlier point, I think the most interesting thing is that the RBA is actually supporting this, because they really want to see how can they, through these tests, witness, see, get the research, learn from it to actually do something. Because until stuff like that happens, there is no way I can see any government just adopting, things like this, like these digital assets and tokenized markets. So it's really fascinating there. But I think one thing that people miss out on, because these are complex systems, even for those that work in, corporate, traditional business, traditional finance, let alone the community out there of just everyday folks that are interested in blockchain, but don't understand that, we're talking about efficiency. How does this kind of work in a traditional sense? Imagine what you've just described without blockchain. How does that kind of system currently run? What does that look like?
It runs with a bunch of people and a bunch of sticky tape and a lot of fragmented systems.
Figurative and literal sticky tape at times, I think.
Most likely, yes, because you do deal with paper as well.
Yeah.
But in a value chain, you'll hopefully always have at least every node in that value chain running some form of system.
Yes. Some software system or something.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I usually think of it as Excel. It's not always Excel, of course.
I've seen like these cartoons where it's like financial system, and they show all these spreadsheets. Oh, sorry, they show systems, and underneath those systems, it's Excel 2003.
Yeah.
Not even the latest. It's like something older because of upgrades and all that.
So actually, let's take this example, right? We're sitting with two laptops side by side. And if we then want to run a spreadsheet, right, then you'd have to fire up Excel. I'd fire up Excel. And if we want to, one way in which we can reconcile that is that we look at, each other's screens, and then you make a change there, and I have to represent that change here, right? I mean, that's cumbersome, right? We could, on the other hand, fire up a Google Sheet, share, and then you make changes and I make changes. But then we have all these different synchronization problems of, well, maybe I changed something that I shouldn't have. Maybe I mean, most likely we can't only use that one Excel sheet. We also have to connect other pieces of software.
Because I've got my internal
Exactly,
systems, you've
right.
got yours.
And all of a sudden it starts becoming quite complicated.
Yep.
That's traditional finance, right? With the difference that usually you're actually not running on that Google Sheet, because the Google Sheet becomes almost that shared ledger, and that's effectively what we're trying to achieve with a blockchain, right?
So with the invoice originator, they're probably using, the first part of the value chain that you described there. Sounds like they would be currently, and many of them are like this. They're using their own kind of specialized, maybe some generic systems that are common to others, but more likely it's an industry specific system that's been purpose built for the industry that they're in. Like if you think about it, all systems are just databases. We hear the term CRUD, which stands for create, read, update, and delete of a database. So if you have an app, it's a CRUD app. Everything is a CRUD app. Salesforce is a CRUD app because you do those things to a database. It's just that they all look different. And so they've got their specifics for that system. But if that payments originator is using a system like that, is it currently the state that they typically don't connect and talk to like these other systems? So, we do things via like email. Someone wants to have something done. Maybe they can talk to the system, or maybe it's just via email to get like payments happening. What does that kind of look like? Because I'm just trying to dig deeper into what it doesn't have to be exact. We're not saying that Paid and others are doing this, but just in general.
Yeah, look, I think that's the world is digital today.
Yeah.
Right. So you could take an extreme approach and say, well, yes, things are connected because they are. I mean, you have we have Wi-Fi connection, we have internet, they are connected.
Yep.
And although you do have fragmented systems, there is a lot of add-ons to these different systems that connect multiple systems together, right? But what we don't have is a unified data model. Now, this sounds a little bit geeky, but it's that's actually what we don't have.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then the question is, well, why is that important? The reason that is important is because for communication to happen, we need to have standardization. Right. So we have language, for example. We speak English.
Yep.
That's why we can communicate. But not only do we need to speak English, we also have to have frames of references that are quite unique or understandable. So if we're going to get into solving a specific topic, then we almost need to have a dictionary so that we know that when I use this word, this is what I mean, and this is what I mean. So there's clarity in that communication. That is a data model, right? So let's say that you are the payment system over here.
Sure.
You have a bunch of customers that are invoicing each other and that are making payments, and then I am the asset pool that is managed by a trustee, and I'm going to be taking those invoices, right? In today's world, we will agree almost on a case-by-case basis that, okay, well, this is the ID for the invoice, these are the parameters for the invoices. I trust that you're sending me the right information. You are not only sending me the right information when we take those assets into the pool, but also as you see those payments being made and then transfer those payments to me, because I'm going to transfer them as the asset pool to the investors, then we need to keep all of that communication, right? And every time something happens, we need to make sure that the way that you describe what is happening is in this dictionary, is in this unified data model. So we're creating this Frankenstein model almost every time right now.
What is stuck together with sticky tape?
Right. And what we're doing now with blockchain is two things. One of them is that we're using standardized templates. They are standardized or they become standardized because a lot of this stuff is and should be open source. Right. So we say, okay, we're going to use this system. Now, how do we trust that that what you're doing is synchronized with what I'm doing? Well, that's the entire purpose of a blockchain, right? We run two separate nodes. And then we have a consensus mechanism that ensures that these things are consistently synchronized. So what you're looking at and what I'm looking at is exactly the same. So as you see invoices being generated on that end, they get booked here. I see exactly the same thing. You focus on what you do. I focus on what I do. But whatever is necessary for me to know, you don't even need to think about communicating to me. It is already being communicated, right? And that's the real big difference, right? Unified data model, unified infrastructure where there is perfect and unique, immutable, incorruptible communication in the messaging. That's what allows us to be able to compress both execution of transactions and the messaging into one thing, as opposed to you have your laptop, I have my laptop. You will also have a bank account.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
You'd have to connect through APIs to be able to synchronize your bank account with this Google Sheet. And as things happen on your bank account, then you need to go and say, well, I need to reconcile that this payment actually matches this intent or this invoice, and this invoice then goes into this pool. And
reconciliation is a big thing.
Right. And then we need to make sure that on your end, actually, if you receive a payment, that payment doesn't bounce. Right. Because one of the things with the securitization is that an investor will buy a bond and they'll expect that bond to pay a coupon at the end of the month. Right?
Okay, explain that.
So interest.
Yes.
Right. Now, this interest for this bond is the aggregation of payments from invoices over a month.
Okay.
Right. So in today's world, you'll have a system that'll look at the bank account and it'll see all of the payments being made. And then at the end of the month, it'll take all of those payments and it'll say, okay, this is the aggregated amount that we're going to pay as a coupon. And you'd think that, well, here we go. The problem is that in the real world, we don't have instant settlement necessarily.
Nope.
And if we have settlement, there could be a bounce back, right? Because maybe there weren't funds on a direct debit. So sometimes, you'll see a payment is drawn, but then it's given back to the bank account if the bank account doesn't have all of the necessary funds. So you will see money coming in, but then you won't necessarily know if that money's going out 2 days later. So you have to then wait to see if that transaction actually went through, then reconcile, then send me the information. So you see all of these different lags, right? And that's not and that's not taking into account, just the human errors of
absolutely,
of pressing the wrong thing in this massive Excel sheet or
fat finger kind of trades that people in crypto may have heard about, where someone's added an extra zero accidentally, or I think it was like an Australian woman maybe in Adelaide or something like that one of the exchanges accidentally sent her, instead of 1,000, it was 10,000 or 100,000 or something like that, and she spent it and had to go to court. But those mistakes happen even when we have systems. So without systems, things are slow. Let's think about it that way. With systems, things marginally improve. We've got better visibility, but more importantly, it's like the efficiency of things. But even then, like current systems, things still take time. There's still mistakes. But what you're saying by the sounds of it is that by moving things onto this common system with a common language that's being defined, and let's talk about Red Belly next, because that's what enables this. By having something like that, we can actually now have more of these protections against human error, against some group, putting stuff out and then, okay, let's do the payment. They don't actually have the funds. Well, you can avoid that kind of stuff now because we can program and have the proper visibility. Really interesting stuff there. I think, what this all points to is just how, and I can already see it, obviously biased, but like how blockchain really does transform things here. But let's talk about Red Belly. Like, why was that chosen as the network to do what you've described on top of?
Many reasons. I would argue that it wasn't really chosen because it is a blockchain, because it's more than that. It's a network. First off, obviously, it has the academic pedigree on the consensus and so forth. That's super important. People don't really care about that much, unfortunately, but it's because they don't understand the difference between a sufficient or a necessary condition. So I think that once we agree or accept rather that finality is a necessary condition and it's deterministic finality, then you start understanding why red belly was chosen for that. But second of all, it's that you need to have jurisdictional clarity because you're actually dealing with real money and you're dealing with transactions that fall under a specific jurisdiction, which in this case is Australia. And then second of all, or rather third, you also need to have a bunch of different service providers or participants that are willing to offer the services that are required in the value chain, right? So you need to have a trustee, you need to have an exchange, you need to have this. And we're not talking about a crypto exchange, we're talking about a traditional exchange, right? So for example, the Australian Bond Exchange. So when we saw that all these assets were in place, we realized, well, that's the only way that we can actually go forward in a reasonable time frame, and and the choice was made.
I think, there's going to be more news about just all the different participants. Red Belly is very interesting because it's the first time it's on a public blockchain that a central bank is doing this sort of test. So, the waves around that need to be more widely known. But, we will definitely dive into the Red Belly Insights podcast. As we see more of the different use cases that are coming out, what are you most looking forward to as part of the next steps with all of this?
What I'm most looking forward to is what I think would have been impossible to do outside of this pilot. And it's to have proper, collaborative, open discussions with all of the different participants to design the flow of what happens next, right? Because we have to bear in mind that these are big organizations, they're highly competitive, they have a lot of confidentiality that they need to deal with. Like it's a very complex landscape. So the fact that all of these participants are playing together is extremely rare. And that's what's going to enable us to leapfrog, right? It's not only a technology question, it's a how technology. And the how for the technology will be informed by the collaboration over how we define from the ground up what is the most efficient way for a securitization value chain to execute across these players.
I'd argue from the sounds of it that, and given what we know about working in this space, that if it wasn't for a pilot like this, it'd be very hard to see these groups all coming together at the same time and learning off the same project, as opposed to, someone will do a project, it'll make the news. Hopefully some other group sees that in the value chain that we just described, maybe follows up, has to go through all this internal kind of process. No, this was a catalyst that brought all of these groups that would probably not some of them already mixed together, that's fine, but there's some that would not mix together at all. And it's only thanks to the work that you've done and by this pilot project, which we thank RBA and DFCRC for. And obviously our partners, Red Belly, Australian Bond Exchange, Pay, Facinaro, and all of those that are part of this. If it wasn't, for a project like us doing this, I'd argue that it might take even years for something like this to reap the benefits to the wider market that the lessons will come from for this.
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody's been super helpful. Our friends with Fireblocks have been amazing.
Absolutely.
Australian Bond Exchange, Perpetual, AML. And this is one of those scenarios where you see that competition actually is, you could argue that it's important, but it could be very, very detrimental. Because competition does not lead to collaboration. And that's the spirit of this pilot. It's really about collaboration so that we can together understand how that network effect is built, right? So, yeah, it's a big thing.
And speaking of big things, definitely subscribe, like, share, all of that kind of stuff with this podcast. You might not have seen, but we do have the FEX Insights page for this where you can interactively explore this. The accompanying blog, we've just put a education page on there for people to learn about all of this. But the great thing with the videos, like you're seeing here, is that you get to ask the AI questions. So if there were things that Arturo's explained or that I've asked that you want explained in more detail, you can certainly do that. And show notes have the links and whatnot. But for now, Arturo, thanks for your time.
Thank you.